Guys, how beautiful is that? How's it going, guys? New angle, new camera angle. Today we got a good one. Little bit of prep went into this video. A little bit of prep, not as much as the Valis video, but I have some notes. Prepared. Okay. Today's topic. It's something funny. So, when you talk about more like Eastern, I guess like Eastern philosophy or like really popular Eastern philosophy books, one that everyone knows, right, is The Art of War, right? Everyone either has a copy of The Art of War or knows someone that does have a copy, or, I think a lot of people like to pretend that they've read it. A lot of people do the quick chat GPT, what are the most important things from The Art of War that I can reference in conversation. But there's a book, not a book, but I'd say almost like a manuscript that comes from Japan. I think it's around the 1650s, so 17th century. And it gets really slept on, and not as many people know about it. I personally have I've gone into Art of War and I've gone into this book. I personally prefer this book to Art of War. I don't know if this is controversial, but what is this book or this manuscript? So it's Miyamoto Musashi's The Book of Five Rings. There's a lot of different versions of it. You guys can find it online for free. There's certain translations where it's very short. I think you can find an EPUB version or like a PDF version that's only about like 60 pages, 70 pages. But then if you go into like a Barnes & Noble or like a Kinokuniya or something like that, they do have like 200-300 page versions of the book. I'm not sure where that discrepancy in length comes from, but besides the point, this book is insane. I think it's a really, really important read. And I wrote down, I think it touches on so many sort of like interesting aspects of what it means to be a tactician, and not in the sense of a lot of the time if you hear the word like strategist or tactician, you think of it in a very like military or sort of operational sense, right? How do you win a battle? But if you can abstract the notion of warfare and the notion or the concept of battle and warfare and war to encompass your entire existence. If you think about it, every day when you go out, you're in a war. You're battling yourself. Let's say your personal desires. You're battling the guy next to you. Let's say there's two people lining up for a job interview. We live in a world where, unfortunately, I'm not sure if I believe this 100%, but a lot of things seem very scarce, whether it be artificial or actual scarcity. I don't think I'm in a position to say, but we do live in a world where a lot of things are framed as scarce, and scarcity leads to competition. And then in a sense, almost everything you do day to day is in some form, in one way or another competitive. So I think Musashi, he gives you some advice on how to best become a tactician for... It's almost like to enable any man to be a tactician, right? You don't have to be a frontline commander, military commander. You don't have to be, the top guy at your company. You don't have to be the CEO. Everyone has the capacity to sort of build his sort of like repertoire of commanding assets and commanding skills. And whether or not you're just commanding yourself or, a company of 5,000 or an army of 100,000, the same lessons hold true, right? So without rambling on too much longer, Musashi starts off, so he writes this book again in like the 1650s, 1660s, something like that. And this is at the end of his career as a samurai. So he was a samurai, a military strategist, and then also like a duelist, right? So he would go out and train and fight other men in one-on-one combat, usually with a sword. And there's this super hard quote where, at this point his career is over, and he says, I write this on the 8th month or the 3rd day of the 8th month of this year, something like that. And he's like, I have defeated over 60 men in one-on-one combat. And until now, or I have lived my life until now, unrivaled under the sun. And just, first of all, when someone starts off like that, you got to give, first of all, you got to give the guy props. Second of all, what are you going to do? Now you're not going to listen to the guy? You know what I mean? How many people have you one-on-one, how many people have you 1v1'd, right? Not on Rust, but like in real life. It's insane. So when someone sort of starts and front loads their validity and tells you like, hey, listen, I know what I'm talking about, you sort of want to listen. But so I have written down a few of the most important lessons that I gathered from the book. I'd really recommend going and reading the book for yourself, even though we're going to talk about these 5 sort of big lessons. There are so many sort of like these nuggets of wisdom within the book, and there are so many things that you can miss on a first read. I read it one time and then sort of skimmed it 2 or 3 other times. Every time you open the book, you're going to find something that applies to you, and especially things that apply at different parts or different times in your life, right? I always use this example where, like, you know, if you read something as a single guy, you might get one message, but read the same book 20 or 30 years later as a man with a family and children, you're bound to pick up on new things or new themes or new ideas or new lessons that previously would have never even been in your wheelhouse, right? So first of all, Musashi has this one really good thing, which is almost parallel or runs sort of concurrent with Emerson's teachings, right? Which we talked about in a previous video. Musashi says to do all things with no teacher. And this is so important. And he says that one of the reasons why he won so many of his duels was that he had no predictable strategy. He had no predictable style, if that makes sense. So, you know, if you watch boxing today, you know, there's like, there's Soviet style pendulum boxing. There's like this sort of American sort of like stick and move boxing. There's, you know, the Philly shell that Mayweather made popular. There's like peekaboo with Tyson, right? When you find a boxer, and nowadays when you watch a boxer, you can sort of very quickly sort of put him into a bucket, right? Oh, this guy's a pendulum guy. Oh, this guy's a range fighter. This guy's an in fighter. Musashi said what made him so formidable in one-on-one combat was that he had no style. He had all styles simultaneously. He was, in a sense, not a jack of all trades, master of none, but a jack of all and a master of all. And this sort of comprehensive understanding of he puts it in a way where unless you comprehend fully the entirety of a system and the entirety of of the way something works, you can't be an expert in it, right? Just because you could be, you know, the best defensive boxer of all time, if you don't understand how the infighter thinks, if you don't understand how the Soviet style or the Cuban style or the Mexican style thinks, there's no way that you can master those opponents, and then there's no way that you can work to their disadvantages, right? And to achieve this, Musashi says that you should go about pursuing things and learning skills and sort of absorbing knowledge and building competency, regardless in whatever it may be, right? Whether it's making a financial model for your work, or whether it's, you know, setting up a really good organizer for day-to-day errands, or whether it's, you know, a new gym routine, or setting a weight loss goal, whatever it may be, a diet, whatever it may be, you know, I want to read 50 books this year. How do you go about it? Whatever skill or competency you want to build, pursue that competency without a single teacher. So don't rely solely on the advice of one man or one woman or one expert, because then in a way you're absorbing that person into yourself, and you are sort of learning not only their strengths, and you are learning sort of their version of that competency, but then inherently you will also adopt their version of weakness, right? No one's perfect, and if you only learn from one person, you're bound to not only take on their strengths, but also learn to mimic their weaknesses, right? If you're, let's say, again, with the boxing analogy, right? If your coach is an amazing fighter, he had a great career, but, you know, every time, let's say, every time the fight went past 6 rounds, he'd lose. He could only win short fights. Let's say he didn't have the gas tank, or he didn't have the cardio, or he didn't have the strategy to get him to 12 rounds. No matter how much he trains you, no matter how much you learn from him, unless you're able to synthesize and sort of add in your own techniques, your own skills, your own ability, you're bound to fail in the same way that your coach had previously, right? So Musashi is very adamant about that point. He says, whatever you do, whatever you sort of choose to partake in, go about it as an individual, as someone seeking knowledge, and go about it in a way where you don't have a teacher. You are your own teacher, and you learn from yourself. And that's the way to build true competency, true capability, and to really become a professional or an expert in something. Now, that isn't to say, Musashi also says, learn from others, learn from elders, things like that, learn from more experienced men, more experienced warriors, but never take one person to be your teacher or your role model, because again, as we said, that pigeonholes you and it does limit your growth. So learn all things with no teacher, teach yourself, build from everything, that the world has to offer. Some of the best boxers have such amazing footwork because, they were in ballet or dance when they were younger. And, if you were to tell someone, oh, well, go do ballet, it'll make you a better fighter, most people would scoff at you, right? But never limit the range or the variety of input when it comes to building a certain capacity or skill, because you never know what sort of obscure, adjacent, or even like completely perpendicular skill sets or pieces of information could actually end up helping you, right? So that's lesson 1. All things, no teacher, master, no style. You are the master of every style. You are your own style of learning, of operating. Second, this is a good one. This should be common sense, guys, but he says the true warrior is a master of not only the sword, but the pen. I think so many times, you hear in these, famous movies, things like that, oh, the pen is mightier than the sword, or, oh, the pen cannot write if the sword is cut off its wielder's hand. There's a lot of stuff like that. And again, to the point of mastering all, if you want to be truly competent, you must know not only how to fight physically, but also how to fight mentally, strategically, emotionally, spiritually. You must master your thoughts and your intellect alongside mastering your body and the strength that God has bestowed upon you. It's not enough to be an amazing writer and a beautiful wordsmith, and it's also not enough to be the strongest guy in your office, right? It doesn't make sense. But when you pair those two sort of sides of who you are as a person, when you can not only showcase amazing intellect, and when you can not only convey your points eloquently and sort of sway conversations and achieve outcomes through whether it be verbal debate or negotiation or whatever that may be, if you can't put your thoughts on paper, you're inept. You're almost 50% useless, right? And likewise, if you're able to speak so well, but no one takes you seriously enough because you are not, you haven't worked on your body, or you haven't worked on your sort of physical, the more physical aspect of your soul, right? Of what your soul is paired to. If you haven't worked on the physical, then more often than not, your words can carry less weight than they're meant to. People can take you more lightly, less seriously. People can brush you aside. It will make you more risk averse, right? It'll make you more timid, more apprehensive. But when you become a man that is not only physically formidable, but also formidable intellectually, then you get to sort of reap the benefits of being a master tactician, right? Then you get to sort of work and build and sort of shape the world around you, and lead your family, and hopefully live a righteous life, because you have all of the tools and weapons and sort of skill sets available to you to accomplish those things. So learn everything without a teacher, be your own teacher. Second thing is master the pen and the sword equally. Neither is more important than the other. Another cool thing, so Musashi's had all of these duels, right? And he's always dueling, and he's fought so many different men, and he's cut and killed so many different men. And Musashi says that if you can fully master, if you can master the art of overcoming one man, right? The general, abstract, the layman, right? If you can pick a random person in the street and you have mastered the ability to overcome this individual, he said then there's no further learning required to then go on and master and overcome the world. He said if you were able to master just one man and have the complete skill set to overcome one adversary, then no further learning is required, no further searching, no further training. It's purely a shift in mindset that must arise in order to then go on and conquer the world. Because in effect, Musashi says that the world and the army and the brigade, the squad, whatever organization it is an organization of individuals. And so if you're able to learn how to overcome an individual, then very quickly you can adapt that skill, and you can very quickly, just through mental framing, understand that you can now take on an organization. You can now take on, if I can defeat one man, I can defeat 100,000 men, I can defeat 1,000,000 men. But it's purely a mindset shift rather than acquiring new knowledge or new strategy or new tactics. The problem is, it is very, very, very difficult, Musashi sort of hints at, right, to truly build the skill required to absolutely and ultimately and unquestionably know in your mind that you can overcome another man, right? I mean, yeah, that's the difficult part, right? You must be so sure that you've completely and comprehensively covered sort of all arenas, all theaters of war, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, everything. That, I mean, to reach that point is difficult, but Musashi says once you get there, the rest is, the rest is sort of a cakewalk, right? On the theme of groups and individuals, Musashi says that sometimes if you want to accomplish things, and you heard this saying before, this if you want to travel fast, travel light, or if you want to go far, go alone, things like that. Musashi says that in order to be really effective and really agile and really unpredictable, and in order for you to sort of win those one-on-ones, you must operate alone. Musashi says that an individual is far more unpredictable than a group. In a group, I mean, you see this, you see this in busy public areas. You see this in just walking in. If you're walking in a crowded shopping center, if you're at a restaurant, right? People sort of move in a group, right? We do sometimes revert to this sort of like herd mentality, where if this guy walked down the staircase on the left side, then everyone's going to follow him, and we're all going to walk on the left, and then these guys will walk on the right, and if you start walking on the right instead of the left, now you're an outcast from this new social clique that we've just formed in the last 10 seconds, right? And you see this sort of strange acquiescence of people, right? When you're in a large group. Musashi says that if you truly want to be unpredictable, then you must operate alone, and you must become an individual. When you are an individual and a tactician of your own making, you then are truly powerful and truly unpredictable, because no adversary of yours can look towards any of your allies for hints as to what you might do or what your next move might be. This applies, in work, in private life, it could apply to relationships, right? The more people that are involved, the more predictable the outcome will be. Therefore, if you'd like to maintain the element of surprise, if you'd like to remain unpredictable, if you'd like to sort of reap the benefits that come along with unpredictability, then perhaps you have to think that you might be alone for a little bit, or you might be acting alone for a little bit, which isn't a bad thing, right? If that's what you got to think, right? If that's what you want, then maybe going about it alone is the way things have to be. So these last two, I'm going to wrap up the video in the next couple minutes, but these last two sort of go hand in hand. The first one we'll touch on very quickly. Musashi says don't have favorites. When he's talking about this, he's talking about there's different samurai that love, or they have a favorite weapon, right? Some love the spear, some love the bow, some love the sword, some love the dagger. Musashi said when you have favorites, not only are you predictable, and not only do you sort of lock yourself into a style, but when you have favorites, you inevitably become more, how do you say, more specialized, right? You become more specialized. And when you're specialized, it means that you're strong at something but weak at another. And Musashi says you can't afford to be weak at another. The reason he won all of these duels is because he loved his dagger as much as he loved his sword, and he loved those two as much as he loved the spear. So regardless of the fighting conditions, he was always at his sort of optimal or maximum potential, right? I think us and, we in the modern day, think about yourself, right? I think all of us have favorite everything, right? I have a favorite food. I have a favorite type of coffee. I have a favorite car. I have a favorite bicycle. I have a favorite pair of shoes. I have a favorite outfit. I have a favorite watch. I have a favorite pair of sunglasses. I have a favorite place to go walking. I have a favorite dog. You have all of these favorites. And Musashi says to strip yourself away from having preferences for one thing or another. Don't have a favorite food, but enjoy all food. Don't, Don't have a favorite, restaurant, but enjoy, restaurants as a concept, as an ideal, going out to a restaurant. Because when you do that, not only are you more unpredictable, you can then also better deal with the punches that life throws at you, right? If you have a favorite pair of shoes and you won't go anywhere without wearing those shoes, and they're your best and they're your good luck shoes, and you wear them to every business meeting, and you got your first house in those shoes, whatever it may be, right? When you don't have those shoes with you, you feel lesser than, right? You feel like something's missing. Musashi says, or Musashi sort of teaches you that that's what can get you killed in the one-on-one, right? And although the stakes in modern life are much lower, you can still be attacked and you can still suffer losses due to your attachment and connection to a specific thing or action, right? So don't have favorites. And the last thing that I will leave you guys with, I think this will be a perfect 25-minute video, hopefully. The last thing, and this is probably one of my favorite quotes from the book. I think, so second favorite quote is Musashi says that step by step, walk the road of 1,000 miles. That's amazing. I'm not going to explain that. I think you guys just let that sit a bit. Step by step, walk the road of 1,000 miles. Beautiful. But this is my second favorite quote. And he says, Musashi basically says that, this is so fire, it is a shame to die without having drawn your weapon. So think about what that means, right? I think that's a good place to sort of wrap this up, but it is a shame to have died without having drawn your weapon. Musashi tells you that even if the odds are stacked against you, even if things are insurmountable, right? The opponent is too strong, even if you feel that there's no hope left for you, right? There's honor in still putting up a fight. There's honor in still trying your best. There's honor in not going out quietly, right? And I personally believe, I believe that when you go out with honor, every encounter, if you deal with encounters honorably, and if you leave nothing on the table if you leave everything on the table, and if you truly try your best, regardless of a win or a loss, regardless of a success or a defeat, I believe God takes note of that, and I believe God sort of, he compensates you for choosing to be noble, for choosing to be honorable. I feel like all too often we cower, all too often we get scared, all too often we back out when things get difficult, all too often we feel that, oh, that's for someone else to do. Oh, I don't, maybe if I studied this, oh, maybe if I had a better teacher, oh, maybe if I was a bit, stronger, maybe if I was a bit faster. We set up all of these things in our mind, and we end up creating these obstacles for ourselves where, we beat ourselves down so much mentally where, think about yourself. How many times have you sort of gotten out of a fight or gotten out of a confrontation and you had never even drawn your sword? You might not have even have reached for your sword. Musashi says, don't let that happen. No matter what's going on, at least draw your weapon, because at least there's honor in having drawn your weapon, and at least there's honor in having in having tried to accomplish what you set out to do. If your business failed, having a failed business is still cooler than not having done anything in the last year, right? Making a risky play on an investment, say you want to invest in something, and losing your money, it's still a better story than having never done anything, right? And just having that money sitting in a savings account. It's not financial advice, right? It's not financial advice, but I think it's such a beautiful thing to think about. I think take it as you will, but I remember after I read that, I really sort of looked at myself and sort of examined myself and thought, wow, there are a lot of times where I back out or shy away from undertakings or obstacles or adversaries or decisions. Decisions are a big one, right? How many times have you just not ended up making a decision because the decision is too hard to make, so you do nothing, and then indecision gets you nothing. But yeah, every time you guys think about that now, at least I do, every time you're at a crossroads, at least draw your sword. Because even if, the generals are walking around after the battle and they're sort of, poking at the dead bodies, and you're getting looted, and, people are taking off your armor and your trinkets and stuff, at least they don't find a man that still has his sword in his scabbard, right? At least they found a man that drew his sword, right? Regardless. He drew his sword. With that, guys, I think this was a good one. Miyamoto Musashi, Book of Five Rings. Really good book. New videos soon. I'm going to try and upload more frequently because, I don't know, hopefully the algorithm picks this up or something. I'd like to get some more views. All right. See you guys.